This is a video that I've wanted to make for a while because I think this topic is something that isn't spoken about nearly enough. And that is a topic of non-consensual AI generated images. And by that I mean everything from fake posts to explicit material. Because we live in a world now where AI is becoming a bigger problem day by day. And it's been a heartbreaking worst person you know makes a great point moment because Donald Trump has actually introduced something good for America. The President of the United States has introduced a new bill called the Take It Down Act. And it makes posting revenge porn and explicit deepfake content without consent illegal. It criminalizes posting intimate images, both real and AI generated, without the person's consent. And notably, it also requires technology companies to take any violations down within 48 hours. Now, this is good, because before now, there's really been no countrywide standard of what the law actually is related to AI content. And like I say, I don't need to be the one to tell you that AI content is becoming a massive thing in the modern world, so it's good that now there's a federal standard set for every other state to follow. Because realistically, the only way we're going to start to tackle this stuff in more countries than just America is if one country did set that standard, and it just so happens that America has been the one to do it. But one question that I have just reading this as a person from the outside is, how strictly will this 48-hour policy actually be enforced? We've seen examples of legitimate CSAM stay on social media platforms for weeks. There's one case from a few years ago where someone actually sued Twitter because someone posted her explicit images while she was underage to that platform without their consent, and Twitter took weeks to take them down. And disturbingly, Twitter were actually running ads next to it at the time, so they were monetizing off of CSAM. And the tweet had thousands of likes before it was eventually taken down. And we all know the predator problems that these social media platforms are overrun with. Platforms like Twitter, Tumblr, Discord. They all have such a massive problem when it comes to predators, so it seems really unlikely to me that the platforms will suddenly be able to moderate well. And another question is, obviously, there's so many users outside of the US, so how will this bill actually be enforced when a lot of the time the content that is being posted might actually not be from a US citizen? Sadly, this stuff also runs rampant in the UK where I'm from. Amendments were made to the current online criminality law in 2023 to basically outlaw deepfakes, what this American bill is doing. But the problem is we don't have any sort of forcing the platforms to comply. Apart from the fact that, it is a law, but I feel like introducing this 48-hour deadline would be a plus even here. Because, as we all know, something clearly isn't working when it comes to this stuff. But on the other side, some digital right groups have actually argued that the legislation is far too broad and could lead to censorship. I understand that there is a case to be made there, and I'll speak about that a bit more later, but it does seem like initially this is a brilliant thing to introduce, but it really doesn't surprise me, and probably not you either, that it does have people who disagree with it. But the punishment for this is that anyone caught distributing this content will face up to 3 years in prison, so hopefully that will be a good enough deterrent to keep people away from it. But considering that CSAM is literally illegal and people still post that, my hopes aren't high. So I think it will really boil down to how well can the platforms actually moderate this to keep it at bay. Because like we've said, so far it's not working. And thankfully the platforms themselves have actually supported this legislation, with people like Meta, TikTok, and also Google all having spoken out publicly to support it. One of the notable groups against it was Electric Frontier Foundation, and they made the argument that the bill could be abused to take down legitimate content. So there is an argument to be made from them that people could use it to take down work that they don't agree with, whether that be sex work or just anything else, because again, the report systems on platforms can be abused. So I think it's gonna come down to how well these platforms can vet the reports. But considering that a lot of moderation nowadays is being outsourced to AI or just people who are completely out with the company, my hopes still aren't high. They really aren't. But there's no doubt that this needed to come in, because even just a few months ago, social media platforms were plagued by advertisements that advertised an app that could make two photos kiss. Now, this is a blatant example of non-consensual deepfakes and the type of thing that this bill is trying to outlaw. iNabber made a brilliant video on this subject, which is why I was actually introduced to it, but Meta had displayed over 2,500 of these ads. So imagine how much money they're actually making from this, because the minimum recommended amount to put into Meta advertisements is $10 a day. So if these ads were kept up for over a month, which a lot of them were, then Meta had made over $300. And some of these weren't just up for 1 month, nor 2 months, they were up for even more. So it's likely that Meta's gain from this situation was actually over $300. And disturbingly, these apps were targeting people using quotes like "kiss your ex" or "kiss your crush." So it's crazy to me that even though Meta can claim that their ad policies are strict, they clearly aren't, because how is something as blatant as this getting through? Especially because they claim that all ads are subject to a strict review. Make it make sense. But apart from basically advertising the fact you could non-consensually kiss the people in your life, they were also targeting celebrities like Emma Watson and Scarlett Johansson. And Johansson has actually been in a legal battle over AI because she took action against OpenAI, who run ChatGPT, after they had allegedly used her likeness without her consent. She said the voice was eerily similar to hers and said that she was shocked, angry, and in disbelief. And it seemed like she had ground to stand on, because the company had actually approached her to be a voice for ChatGPT, but she had to turn them down for personal reasons. So in her mind, you can imagine why she thought that she had been used without her consent. But as it turned out, OpenAI actually blatantly denied that they had used her likeness, and said that the voice belonged to a totally different actress and that it was just some sort of coincidence. Whether you believe that or not is up for you to decide, but I don't know. But even her going to court is great, because it shows an example of an influential figure actually taking action against AI. I know a lot of you guys who watch me will have your own stance on it, whether you disagree or agree with it, but it's no doubt that the law has not caught up to the age of AI. But the problem is, even though celebrities can take action like this, if they saw a naked picture of themselves that they know they didn't take, they could take action against that. That's all well and good, but the problem still boils down to the regular person cannot. People like you or me would be completely screwed in that situation. And sometimes even the authorities don't help, because it's like when threatened to leak revenge porn of me, even though there is absolutely nothing of me out there of the sort. Of course, I was not threatened because, like I say, I knew that that didn't exist. But I still reported it to the police in my country. And you know what they did? Absolutely nothing, because there's nothing they can do. This goes across multiple jurisdictions, right, first of all, and second of all, even if there was some sort of online law, it most definitely wouldn't cover stuff as advanced as this. But the fact that even though we can know that there's nothing like us out there of that kind, right, but we can possibly still see it one day is terrifying, because websites like this do exist. Websites where you can make people naked. That feels so dystopian to say. This is like an episode of Black Mirror. And let me pull one up just to show you right now. Okay, even if I just search up Nudify app, right? Because this is what these people call it. They call it Nudify. You can see that one of the first results is from the UK Parliament, but I guarantee that if we even put the word Reddit next to this, we'll still find some results. Okay, so 4 pages on Google, right? And I found a Reddit thread about this. That's how easy it is for people who genuinely want to do this stuff to find apps where they can do it. The post has now been deleted by someone who clearly wants to cover their tracks, but they're in a subreddit called NSFW Tools AI. Now this is interesting to me because it was made in 2024, has over 2,500 members, is blatantly advertising in the sidebar that they have AI face swaps and AI undress tools, and yet it's still on Reddit. And I'm sorry, but there's no way that I'm the first, what do you even call someone who's against it? A normal person? An anti, I guess? There's no way I'm the first anti-person to come across this sub. But in the comments, you can see that they got the exact answers they were looking for. And they managed to get past any sort of auto mod by putting Telegram links and spacing it out, and they've also got websites like cloveoff.net. I'm actually curious to see if this is still a thing. It is, okay. So this website that they linked is actually still a thing. And you can see here they're blatantly advertising that they have been written about by massive organizations like CBS and other news outlets from all around the world. And they have a 3-step process. Select a photo on your device and upload it to the website, set the required parameters like breast size, and then you get and download the result in just a few seconds. So I wonder if this is paid or they literally advertise try now for free. Okay, so you can upload photos here. I'm obviously not going to do that, right? But you can upload photos here and then you can select what you want them to be in. And you can even create a video from the photo of them taking off their clothes. Do you know how insane that is? This is how advanced AI is getting. And disturbingly, right, you can make them get into very little clothing, but you can't actually make them naked unless you give this website money. They also, you can try out their Telegram bot. So they even have a Telegram bot that can undress photos. But they have so many options here, like they have clothes options. Disturbingly, one of them is schoolgirl. And just by trying to search up the name of this specific website, there's another website that names their bot the same thing. And they advertise the fact that they give you 10 free daily trials of it. They also have a section of their website where it says for media and press, and they have an email where you can contact them about anything, about interviews, about AI questions, about their service. They're ready for all of it. My question is, what the actual And here we go, they also have an acceptable use policy, which is almost guaranteed to get them out of any legal trouble. So let's see here, let's see what it says. So they say that their products must not be used to transmit, distribute, or store any material in violation of any applicable law, and up until recently that basically would have meant nothing, but now because of this new US law, it thankfully does mean that this website will be illegal to use in the US. But whether they'll actually do anything about it is another question. They even say in their FAQ that using AI to create deep nude style images raises ethical considerations. We encourage users to approach this with an understanding of responsibility and respect for others' privacy, ensuring that the use of undress app is done with full awareness of ethical implications. So they don't even say, hey, don't do this isn't right. They say, we know it's wrong, and we'll still allow you to do it. And let me just clarify that that certainly isn't the only website, because this post alone has 351 comments of so many different bots, so many different websites, and a lot of it is obviously done through Telegram, which is a dodgy site. I made a video on that, you can watch it there if you're interested. But yeah, it's clear that there is a community for this stuff, and that alone is incredibly disturbing. So yeah, sites like these do exist, and just a few months ago they were being blatantly advertised, because it went past the kissing videos, and there were actually ads being run for sites like the ones I just showed you. And even these kissing apps, right, the existence of them already opens the door to more explicit deepfake content. And although a lot of that is of adults, sadly, it's not exclusive. The NCMEC have already received over 7,000 reports related to AI-generated CSAM. If that's a number already, imagine how much higher that's going to go as AI gets even more advanced. Especially when people who are seeing these ads are actually going and clicking on the site. One of these sites that were advertising their Nudify tool has claimed that over 90% of the traffic came from Facebook and Instagram. And it is also affecting young people, because in 2023, a 14-year-old high school student discovered that one of her classmates had actually used AI to make a nude of her. It was then revealed that multiple other students from the same school had experienced the same thing, and that these images were being spread through platforms like Snapchat that have deleted messages so that no one could figure out what they were doing. And the worst part of it all, after it was finally uncovered, none of them received any meaningful punishments. In fact, the highest punishment that one of these male students received was a 1-day suspension from school. Now, when you're setting standards like that, when you're saying that, hey, the most you're going to get if you do this stuff is a slap in the wrist, then that is creating a community where you're saying this is acceptable. When really, that's far from the truth. Because imagine how those girls are feeling now. They'll always live in fear that one of their innocent Instagram photos can be taken and put through AI and turned into a nude picture. Because in the day and age that we live in, that is now possible, and it's happening. And in countries like Australia, even doing stuff like that would get you arrested, because they have extremely strict laws that basically sees no difference between real and fictional CSAM. And the same goes with AI generated CSAM. And to be honest, I think the laws in other countries really need to follow suit. And another terrible part about that case that I just told you about was that the boys were actually brought into the school office and interviewed with the presence of police but without their parents. I'm pretty sure they actually admitted to doing it all then and there, but their statements were completely admissible in court because the interview had been done without parental permission or presence. And I'm sorry, but how do you mess up a case so badly, especially considering the police were actually there? I get people can get distracted in the moment, but come on. And that's just one example, but I could sit here and tell you many more, because that certainly isn't the only time that something like this has happened. So this new bill is certainly a good introduction, but it also raises the question of what going forward? Will we eventually see the day where things like fake Instagram posts or fake tweets are going to be completely outlawed? I'm sure you'll have your own opinions on that, and I can see an argument for if that would kind of be putting down freedom of speech, but I also think that there's another argument to be made that that would be a great introduction. Because at the end of the day, all of that content can be extremely dangerous. But we do still have work to do with how this is actually going to be introduced into law and how it's going to be enforced by companies. But hopefully it will all go to plan, and disturbing apps like these will finally be illegal. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video, I really appreciate you. Like, subscribe, share the video, do all of that good stuff. If you did enjoy or learn something today, it really helps the channel. Let me know in the comments what you think of this disturbing rabbit hole, because these nude apps are really just out there and they're so disturbingly easy to find. And check me out on social media, I have Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky. Thank you so much to my Patreon supporters and YouTube members: Brooke, Entrepreneur, Morrigan, K4 Silver, Alex Rod, Based Finger, Carmilla, Tango Slime, Shoshka, Frozen Rosies, Nisha Coles, Midnight Kitty, Willow, and Sam. I'll be back soon with another video, but if you want another right now, then YouTube thinks that you'll like the video that's on your screen.